Now, in this second part, we are going to take a look to the economic transformation and their effect on livelihoods. And for this, we are going to see how three specific aspects of modernization at the economic level affect local communities. The first is the commoditization, which is changing from or moving from a production that it's mainly aimed for own consumption to a production for which the main purpose is to be sold. So now products are not evaluated just for their use value, but for their exchange value. That's the first part. Second is the introduction of money as a payment method that to facilitate transactions and expand markets and replacing other forms of interchange. And finally, commercialization, which is the increasing specialization and inclusion of business objectives into the activities. It is important to study livelihood transitions and not just limit into the study of poverty because these aggregated poverty measures, like the ones in the chart that we have been dealing with all the time, sometimes fail to capture detailed or high resolution information about aspects like why are people poor, and why are specific groups of people poor, not in aggregated or in a specific country. Um, why and how do they become poor? What are the mechanisms and the processes in which some person facing a specific situation or some specific change falls into poverty? What failed in that point? And finally, what can be done in order to overcome such poverty situation? Um, However, even if we are experts and have read a lot about it and have access to lots of information and case studies, it is important not to forget that few people understand poverty better than the ones experiencing it. And this needs to be respected. And the insight that the people living under poverty have to provide for the analysis and to propose solutions is very important. People are not just passive research subjects or someone expecting like some external help, but they provide valuable insights and their participation improves the chances of success of poverty fighting programs while providing legitimacy by reducing the impact, for example, of paternalistic attitudes. Another point that I want to mention here is that it's better, or from now on, uh, to use the term impoverished person instead of poor person, because when we talk about someone who's poor, we assume that that's their normal or their natural state, and there is nothing natural in poverty. In most cases, poverty is also the result of conditions and situations that are beyond the control of the person. So when someone describes assumes that when we study livelihood transactions, there are also some aspects that need to be taken into account, and is that livelihoods can change over time, so the activities and the way income is generated and spent and necessities are satisfied changes. These transitions can be slow and incremental in some cases, or fast in response to specific events and require a fast adaptation by the people. The livelihood transitions are the result from multiple drivers acting at multiple scales and levels. These scales are both spatial and temporal. There are long-lasting processes, punctual events, processes that happen at the local level, at the regional, or the international level that end up affecting the way people live. Including, for example, a war in Ukraine that results in a scarcity in with to cases of religious violence, for example. Uh, Migrations, economic and environmental change play central roles in these processes. The arrival of new inhabitants, of new social groups, the transformation of the economic activities, the rise of new sectors, or the environmental degradation require a response and can compromise the livelihood generation capacity. And the interaction of transformation processes with local institutions determines the different observed outcomes. We can have the same process, but each case with their own norms and their own customs and regulations can result in widely different outcomes. And finally, those are some of the key takeaways. Of course, studying livelihoods is a very complex task. There are many aspects that play key roles. They interact at multiple spatial and temporal scales. Uh, Finally, as key takeaways, we need to mention that studying livelihoods is a complex task that requires a lot of expertise and nuance. Uh, because there are economic, cultural, historic, geographical, and political factors that play a role there. And these factors interact at multiple spatial and temporal scales, increasing complexity and making the challenge even harder. The outcomes of the transformation of societies and their modernization depends a lot on the context, and as a result of this, there are no universal one-size-fits-all solution. Each case needs their specific approach. There can be like general, theoretical, and methodological framework, but each case is special and needs to be put into context. And the local experience and knowledge need to be included in the analysis and proposed solutions. And this is it for the moment. I hope you enjoyed it. There is a lot to talk about this, and I'm looking forward to see your voice threads.